everybody, it's me, John Ward, and Donald Wills and I are back for another film discussion. And there's Donald. I always do this wrong. There's Donald. There we go. And we are going to be talking or discussing the Lethal Weapon franchise. And there's four of those. So how are you doing, Donald?
I'm doing well. Can't complain.
That's
I
good
just
because
have to say,
who would
man,
listen?
I think we're getting too old for this crap.
Well, all I got to say is diplomatic immunity. Fucking movie.
Has just been revoked.
Ugh. So what are your before we well actually I have a story and then we'll get more into this. So you and I came up with the, hey, the Lethal Weapon films. Yeah, there's only four of them. Okay, sure, why not? We're maybe watch one episode of the TV show or something like that, which we just figured that neither one of us did, and because I just don't care about the TV show.
I didn't even know, to be honest, I didn't even know it was a TV show until literally like yesterday. So I didn't even know there was a TV show.
Yeah, it's got one of the Waylands in it, I think, and it was on for like 3 seasons, but I have no idea. So
It
we're gonna
got
skip that
canceled,
entirely.
so that should tell you something.
I think 3 seasons is good, beginning, middle, and end. If you kind of work at it that way.
I don't even know if it ended. I mean, it got
Yeah.
canceled, so I don't even know if it ended. So we may
Yeah,
never know.
who knows? Maybe it got canceled so they could do Lethal Weapon 5, which has been in the works now for quite a while. So yeah. And I heard a script idea. Well, we'll let people know we're doing this video literally right under the wire. Like it is, thank God for leap year because today is the 29th, and and I'm gonna get this thing up tonight so then we can still say that we did this in February. And one of the reasons I asked Donald if we could do it a little bit later is because I was watching an 80-minute documentary from Joe Blow, and it was all about the franchise. And he kind of broke down each movie, and I wanted to finish it because he was giving some really valuable information for us. And I'm like, oh no, if we do this when we said we would, I'd miss out on part 4. But if we do it 30 minutes later, then I could get part 4 in there. And so thank you for doing this, like 30 minutes later, because now I got the whole
No
info of the
problem,
whole,
man. No problem.
yeah, the
Hey,
whole franchise.
you have done it for me when we did Rambo. So,
Yeah, and I mean stuff happens, but my story thing on this is, so I started watching Lethal Weapon, and we did watch the director's cuts. The Blu-rays, I believe, are the theatrical cuts, which I still want to
yeah.
buy. And then the Blu-rays, which is this, the DVDs are the director's cuts. And they even say director's cut, director's cut, director's cut. And then this is, I guess, technically the director's cut, because this is the version that Donner brought out, which matches the length of these now. I'm not a big fan that they're, the movies, that it's one and then you flip it and then it's the other one and then you flip it. But so and I
Flipper
did my
discs, my mortal enemy.
yeah, and I'll explain what this is. So I started with Lethal Weapon. It was like last Monday, and then I watched Lethal Weapon 2 on something like Wednesday. And then I waited until this morning to watch Lethal Weapon 4. There's like no special features on these discs at all, really nothing. And then there's like one little 3-minute video on Lethal Weapon 3. And at least I think it's part 3. And then, but with part 3 is, so I got through 1 and 2, and then, like I said, I watched 4 this morning. But then last night, all of a sudden, the DVD just freezes, and I'm like, fuck, and I bought it used, so buyer beware type of thing. And so I took it and I'm chapter scan, I'm doing all this, popping it out, and I'm using the spray to clean it and wiping it
Mhm.
down, and all it's doing is making it worse. And
Oh,
I could not get past them at the funeral for the son's gaying a friend.
yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, this sucks. So I'm like, okay, fine. As I'm sure these are Warner Brothers, they're going to be on Max or HBO or whatever you want to call it. And
Mhm.
and so I'm looking, they're not on there. They're on Prime, I think, but I don't have Prime. And I'm like, well, that's weird. It's Warner Brothers. Why wouldn't it be on Max? So
Ah,
I tried the disc again, still couldn't get it to work. And it's like, fuck, okay, great. So now I get to buy this again. And I figured, well, when I buy it again, I'll just buy one that's new and buy the Blu-rays. So then I have both versions.
mhm.
And so I went to my favorite. Is it legal? Is it not legal? Well, it has ads, so maybe it's legal, but maybe not. Who knows? Website where they had all the movies and the TV show. And
Mhm.
so I watched the first, because all these movies are like 2 hours or just over 2 hours. So I watched like the first like hour and 15 minutes of the director's cut of part three. And then I watched the rest of it on that iffy channel, which I don't think it was the director's cut. And so I finished it. But it's really annoying because it's I looked at the disc and I could just see that there's like fingerprints on it. And I'm like, oh crap. And I figured, well, if I spray it and wipe it off, it should be okay. But instead, it just seemed to make it worse. And this happened before. So maybe that spray isn't the best thing to use, even though it's recommended for CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, all that stuff. But so
It,
I did watch it. It was just very frustrating.
yeah.
So
Well, plus those flipper discs are always have problems, so that's why when I seen there was a flipper disc, I was like, "Ooh, yeah, those ooh."
yeah, because you're going to use your fingers to. Oh look, we're going to take it out and then we're going to flip it, and then so
Mhm.
fingers are always involved.
And
And
plus, they're noted for freezing and stuff all the time, so it's probably not even just your version. Probably a lot of people probably have that same problem.
yeah, it's hard to tell, but I mean these are not in the best condition, so I don't know. I really wish that the person didn't sell it. Maybe they didn't know. I don't know, but it looked great. I mean, when I got it, even though it was used, it looks nice. It looks fine.
Yeah,
And even with some fingerprints and light scratching, you could still play it. But
yeah.
yeah, it didn't, it just didn't want to do it. And it was so frustrating because I think I spent about an hour extra just trying to get part three to play. And it's like, and then having to watch what I'm assuming is the theatrical version, but at least, I got it. Um,
At least you got it in. You know, you got the
yeah.
view time in.
So that's my little story with viewing all of this. And I have seen all of them in the theater originally. I
Okay.
saw them. I think I worked at the theater that played one and two, and then might have even been part three also. Because you had mentioned
Thank you.
that there's an end credit scene to part three, which I
Yeah.
thought about. And when I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this.
Okay.
Um, but I did see all of them in the theater originally, and then
Okay.
once I heard the director's cuts were out, I rewatched them, and those I think now are considered to be. Well, I don't know with the Blu-ray if the Blu-rays aren't the director's cuts. I don't know what's considered to be the actual versions. So
Who
what's
knows?
your take on all that?
I mean, the knowing Warner Brothers is probably some stupid reason. I mean, they have a stupid reason for not releasing a lot of stuff. So I'm assuming they probably either that or there's a rights issue. Maybe they only have the rights to theatrical cuts and that's it.
Yeah, maybe the director's cuts can only come out on DVD. That was with
with
the
Dr. Corey.
original Scream. Is the unrated Scream can only be
Mhm.
released on Laserdisc.
Okay.
You can't get it. It's the R-rated one on
I
everything else. It's only Laserdisc that is the unrated version. So
hate when
I
they do that. I really do. I wish they just make every version like available. I mean, especially which I'll get to here in a couple minutes. With your DVD version, how was the quality when you watched them?
they look like DVD. They
I
were
mean, were
they
they like very compressed?
it there were definitely some scenes where it yeah, they just didn't. I mean, I guess for at the time when they probably came out, they looked great, but
Yeah,
now you're kind of looking at them going like, ooh. And
yeah.
from this Joe Blow retrospective that I watched, these director's cuts are not director's cuts. Like Richard Donner, who directed all four, did
Mhm.
not authorize these. So Warner Brothers decided, well, because the films were so successful and kind of anniversary type of stuff and all that, and to make more money, they added in all of the deleted stuff, or at least most of the deleted stuff, to make these director's cuts. And maybe this is why the Blu-rays aren't this way,
I was
is
gonna say
Donner didn't like them.
that would explain why maybe before he passed away, maybe he signed a contract with him saying you're not allowed to release the director's cuts because he didn't want the director's cut.
Well,
Didn't know because he didn't.
yeah, and it's funny because I'd mentioned this to you that I think the first Lethal Weapon works better, as the theatrical cut than the director's cut, but the other ones work fine. Is I remember, and I would have to watch the original cut, but from what I remember, is our introduction to Riggs, according to this documentary, is actually the Christmas lot scene where he's buying drugs from the guys that are selling the Christmas trees. I remember it, so maybe, but I remember it for some reason opening with him. Like Danny Glover is up in the morning in the bathtub, and it's his 50th birthday, and then we're introduced to
Mhm.
Riggs, and he wakes up, and and he's like naked and all that type of stuff,
Yeah.
and he puts the gun in his mouth, and he's doing the Russian roulette, like he has the picture of his wife, and then when he can't do it, then he goes to the Christmas lot. But in
Yeah.
this director's cut, that scene is in it, but it's later. So he goes to the school that has the shooter in it, which would
Yeah.
never be done today. And but according to Donner from this retrospective, is he had originally shot it with the school. They cut the school out, put in the Christmas tree thing, and that was the theatrical one. So when they did
Okay.
this director's cut, they just put both kind of back to back. And Donner didn't like that because he thought it was like the same thing. So he's like, "You're
Okay.
doing the same thing twice,
Yeah.
different situations, but it's still the same, the same type of idea." So I get, but one scene that he did like having put back in is the scene in part three where Riggs' older daughter, the one that has the crush on Riggs, goes to his trailer to
Yeah.
say, "Hey, you need to help my dad. Like he's been missing." And then we find out that, Murtaugh has been drinking and he's on
Yeah.
his boat. In the
Mhm.
theatrical version, that's not in it. He just
No.
goes to the boat.
Yeah.
And that explains a lot and would have helped the audience, according to this retrospective, understanding the relationship between the daughter and Riggs. That
Yeah.
it isn't romantic. It's a family thing. And
He's
and
basically
and
she's basically looking at him as like an uncle almost.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not romantic. It's just hey, my you're my dad's best friend. Basically, I look at you as like an uncle figure. Like I need your help.
yeah. And in the theatrical version, it alludes to the possibility of them hooking up.
Yeah.
Until, he gets hit on the boat by, by Murtaugh, and then Riggs falls into the water and says, "Why did you hit me?" And he's like, "You're sleeping with my daughter." He's like, "No, I'm not."
Like, no, I'm sleeping with Lorna.
Yeah, I'm hooking up with somebody, who's me, the female version of me.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so I think the theatrical version of the first film is better. Apparently, so does Richard Donner. And I think the extended versions of the other two movies, I think, work better. And then part 4 is way too long. And especially that ending where it's so uncomfortable with what's her face? Renee, help me here. Riggs's girlfriend. You just said her name. Lana?
Lorna.
What was
Lorna.
it?
Lorna.
Lorna?
Lorna. Yeah.
Lorna. Okay. When Lorna is about to give birth,
Mm-hmm.
and she's screaming at everybody for like 5 minutes, and that just didn't, that did, and I don't, it's kind of weird because I did, and I was going to message you about this, but then I thought, no, I'll wait, of how political the series is. And they do mention that in the retrospective of that it's Save the Dolphins is in this. Apartheid is bad. There's even a poster up in the police department that it says NRA, and there's a line through NRA, like the stop NRA. There's
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, I was looking for that type of stuff because there's a lot of, even in the first film, up on Danny Glover walks past it, it's on the fridge and it says stop apartheid. And then in part 2, of course, that's the big thing in the movie is apartheid. And but in which I found to be funny because I get everybody, including Richard Donner, because they're pretty liberal on stuff, but not Mel Gibson. And he's pretty conservative and religious. His dad created their own religion and built their own church in Australia. And so if you ever watch those or listen to those drunken videos that Mel Gibson has done, he's pretty anti-Semitic and pretty abusive towards women. I used to be a massive fan of his. Like, I was obsessed with when the Road Warrior came out. My first car looked like the car for the Road Warrior because my mom knew how obsessed I was. I even had my hair cut like his, and I had the white streak in it, which then they took and put in Evil Dead 2. But I mean, Mel Gibson could do no wrong, for me until all that crap happened.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting that he seems to go along with all of this. Like, it's even, as much as he smokes, it's kind of an anti-smoking movies, that he smokes a lot in the first film, and then like the second movie on, he's trying to quit, and Murtaugh keeps throwing the cigarettes away. And then in part 3, he's eating the dog biscuits, and that's supposed to be his patch. So whenever he gets a craving to smoke, he'll eat a dog biscuit, which dog biscuits aren't bad. If you've ever tried them, they're not bad.
I'm not gonna lie, man. When I was a kid, I used to eat them. I'm not gonna lie.
I've had a few of them, especially the ones that are different colors. Why not?
All it tastes like is just a biscuit. That's all it really is. I mean, if you look at the ingredients, there's really nothing in them.
No, it's just there to help the dogs sharpen their teeth and and just like clean their teeth.
Their breath. Some of them are.
Yeah, so it's I don't really think it's as a food source as much. It is, but it has other jobs too. But what I found interesting with Gibson is just all the anti stuff that, and no offense, because you're conservative and I'm Democrat, but it seems like with his beliefs that this would not fly, but it seems to fly. And even the whole thing with like the guns in part 3, were like anti-gun, and he is homophobic. So we know from Braveheart that he's homophobic because as the king, he throws his gay son out the window, which never happened in real life. So that's something that he added in.
I've never seen
Um,
Braveheart, so I can't comment on that.
it's a good movie. I've heard it's not historically correct, but it's I liked it. Minus those scenes, but it's just interesting is from the first film forward, he's very homophobic about stuff. Like in the first movie, there's the explosion and Danny Glover falls on top of him. And these are his words. So, and he sits there and says, "Get off of me. What are you, a fag?" And granted, the first film is very R. It's about the pornography business, and
Yeah,
and it's a pretty dark movie. And then
it's a product of its time.
yeah,
mean,
yeah, and the other ones
back
become a
then,
little lighter.
back. I mean, when you think about it, back then, and I'm not, and again, I'm not saying it's right. So don't come at me here, people. I'm not saying it's right, but back in the day, homosexuality was looked down upon. Now, is it right? Absolutely not. But that's just the way it was back
Well,
then.
and it
So,
was looked at as being funny because I remember, I am pretty sure in the theater when this came out, which was like 84, somewhere around there,
mhm.
that I laughed at that joke when when Mel Gibson told Danny Glover to get off of him. I probably laughed. I mean, when you look at something like the Beverly Hills Cop series, Surge, I think is the guy's name, who was in Perfect Strangers, and he's the very flamboyant, oh, look at you, he's the very kind of Nathan Lane gay guy that's in the movie that represents LA and like Beverly Hills. So definitely in the 80s, there was something going on there. And I don't think there was anything in part four. So,
I
but I
mean,
do
dude,
know in one and two, there's definitely stuff that
yeah.
it was just weird seeing the thing. Oh, and then in part four, because this is where I was leading up to, with everybody kind of being more liberal, including Gibson, marriage is a very big deal. So when Murtaugh's daughter finds out that she's pregnant, it's like, you're getting married, right? When he finds out that Russo is pregnant, and he talks to Riggs, well, you're getting
Mhm.
married, right? And then that's the 5 minute uncomfortable screaming match at the end of part four, is
Yeah,
her saying that she needs a priest because she doesn't want to give birth without being married.
yeah.
Because I guess the kid would be a bastard. So, but
I mean,
it's
technically, he still is until they eventually hitch.
yeah, because she just wanted to hear the words. It just made her feel
Because
better.
even the rabbi that Leo gets, he's like, just so you know, even if I do this, it's not going to be official. She's like, I don't care. I just want to hear the words.
Yeah, which I thought was weird, and she's just screaming at everybody, but it's throughout the entire movie, and so it's like, whose values were those being pushed? Because it's Danny Glover mentions it from the second he finds, from the very beginning, with my favorite scene in the entire movie, which is the guy walking around with a flamethrower and the Uzi. I love that scene. And I know when the movie came out, critics bashed it, saying that the scene serves no purpose. It doesn't. It's just a great scene.
It's hilarious.
It's
I
just,
mean,
it's just,
it's comedy gold at that point. I mean, let's be real. Outside of the first movie, from two on, it was trying to be like a little bit. They were trying to add some comedy bits in there, but also being, you know, more more serious, but still trying to lighten it up a little bit, I guess.
Well, yeah, and beginnings of movies are difficult. The beginning of part two, Richard Donner called Steven Spielberg and said, "I don't know how to start part two. What do I do?" And Spielberg was like, "You started in the middle of an action scene." And that's exactly what he did. Mel, you just it's black, and then you just hear Riggs like yelling, and it cuts to them chasing the guys.
Mhm.
Um, and then part three is the bomb, which they never investigate. So apparently there's a mad bomber going around, and they're more worried about the where Murtaugh's son's friend got the gun than a guy blowing up like three buildings. So which I thought was weird. And then yeah, then this one starts with the guy with the flamethrower, which I thought was great because there's also when I liked Seth Rogen for Pineapple Express, he talked about that, and he said that he read in a screenwriting book is you start your movie with a scene that has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. And if you watch Pineapple Express, even though it's got the pot, the Pineapple Express marijuana, the scene really has nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
Mhm.
And I remember that was criticized. I was saying, but what does the scene have to do with the rest of the movie? Um, so you can start your movie that way. But the marriage thing, it's brought up in that scene. It's like the first 5 minutes of the movie, all of a sudden it's, Danny Glover's like, well, you're going to get married, right? So who's forcing marriage? I just find that to be so weird with everybody
Is
being so
this
so
is this
liberal.
before Mel Gibson started getting a little crazy?
Uh
Because
I'm
four
seeing if
was what,
four was like 3 years.
98.
So uh let's see here.
I mean,
Um,
because I never knew that Mel Gibson was conservative. I thought he was liberal, just like the rest of them. I mean, you know, what I mean. So I never looked at it as a political message. I mean, yeah, there were some of them like I could understand like the scene where Leo is trying with it in part two where um Murtaugh goes in and starts saying like, you know, I want to go back to Africa, free the slaves and all that stuff, you know.
um trying to figure out that actual date. I wonder if it would be on Wikipedia. Controversies. Here we go. Let's see if uh so Glad accused Gibson of homophobia in 1991. Um Mel Gibson was arrested in 2006. That's when he did that the whole Jewish thing when he was
Yeah.
ranting and raving to the cops. Fucking Jews. The Jews are responsible for all the wars in the world. Are you a Jew? That's what he was saying to the cops. So this was 2006. So no,
So
so
he was
this was
on his
done.
way to going crazy maybe at that point.
Yeah, because there's those videos that he did where he's I think it was like his assistant recorded them and he was like massively drunk
Mhm.
and he's just screaming at them and I think it was his wife or girlfriend at the time and yeah, which is a real shame because it seems like I just seem to pick the wrong people to like. They always seem to have something bad. And I'm still trying to get over Tom Cruise being a Scientologist, but but
I mean, at this point, you just gotta separate the art from the artist. At this point, I mean, we can appreciate, you know, Mel Gibson as an actor, but know that
He's a great actor and a great director. He's really good at
he's a
both.
great actor, he's a great director, but he's a terrible person.
Yeah, I guess
I
that's
mean, we'll just put it like that. I mean, like I've told people before. I mean, not to go off topic here, but if you look throughout history, I mean, some of the biggest influences throughout everything is H.P. Lovecraft. The man
yeah,
was a racist,
a massive
big,
racist. Yeah.
massive racist. So when he, so but he's inspired everything from Batman to almost everything you see in Hollywood
Yeah.
today has been influenced by Lovecraft.
Yeah, you just don't I never watched that show. I think it's called Lovecraft Country.
I never seen it.
And yeah, and I think it's mostly like a black cast.
No.
But I it got canceled, and so I didn't watch it. I figured, oh well, if it got canceled, I don't want to watch a show that doesn't end. But I was curious of how they would get into that, but I just never checked it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, because he would refer in his stories to black
Oh
people as
yeah, he's
gorillas. He
there
was
there were yeah, I mean, it makes you uncomfortable, especially when today it's like no. I mean, but you gotta remember it was a product of its time too. Back
yeah,
then,
yeah. I mean, give some warnings about it, but yeah, I don't think that it should be removed
no,
or
no,
anything like that.
absolutely
It's
not.
just it's just you gotta, if you're sensitive to those type of things, then maybe don't,
Just say,
don't
hey,
read it.
just, I, I'm okay with, like, for example, if they were to put the Lethal Weapon movies up on Max or wherever they're putting it, say, hey, there might be some homophobic or racial slurs thrown around. I don't think there was racial slurs, brother.
Just the gay stuff. That's it.
Okay, so some homophobic trigger warnings. So just be warned when you watch this.
I mean, yeah, but and like you said, it's stuff is a product of its time. So there are, when you're watching these, there, it is kind of a
It
boys'
was during
club,
the '80s,
and
and the '80s. Basically, homosexuality was essentially a joke back then.
well, like if you look at uh the woman with the blonde hair who's the psychiatrist,
Hmm.
um, she's taken very seriously in the first film. By the fourth film, she's just kind of a blonde, hot, kind of goofy
Yeah,
person where Riggs even comments on her clothes, oh, you look very pretty today, type of thing. And she's like, oh, well, thank you. And stuff, not really taking her seriously, like her what she does, but in the first movie, Murtaugh keeps calling her and going like, this guy's crazy. And she's giving him, advice. So it's just kind of, yeah, it's interesting watching this stuff and how things happen, but it's never, I don't think it's ever with any, even in part two, which are the kind of like the British Nazi guys,
hmm
or I think, no, I think they're Russians, right? Part two, they're Russians. I think they're Russians, or are they
not
German?
Russians. It's some weird country. It starts with an A, I think.
Yeah, I think um it's, yeah, because it deals with, yeah, with apartheid in South Africa.
Is it
Um,
The African government,
but
the South
they
African.
are, I'm just reading the brief thing here on, yeah, it doesn't say exactly, but they're like German or British or something like that, and but they don't even bring it up. The only time that it's brought up is when they're trying to get information, and Leo goes to like the bank, and the guy behind the desk looks at Murtaugh and says, why would you want to go to South Africa because of apartheid? You're black. and that's it. I think that's the only time when his race is ever
Yeah.
brought up. Because if you look at
Mhm.
the background in the police station, even for like 84 and the other films, it's pretty diverse. There's a lot of black cops, there's a lot of women cops, there's
Yeah.
Asian cops.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's not just an all white thing.
Yeah.
There's still a whole diverse set of people there.
Yeah.
Um, I am going to say this, because then you'll know where this sits in my ratings. I do think Lethal Weapon 2 is one of the worst sequels I've ever watched. I think it's horrible. I think it sucks. It's and this retrospective I watched said it's considered to be one of the greatest sequels ever made. And I thought it was garbage. I think it's by far the worst out of all four. When according to this retrospective, part four is considered to be the worst, which I disagree with. But I think it is so poorly written by some of Hollywood's top screenwriters. Like Shane Black came back, he wrote the original movie,
Hmm.
and he came back to do the story. Then they had Jeffrey Boom. I think Jeffrey Boom is how you say his last name, and he wrote The Lost Boys, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He also did The Dead Zone.
The very last Indiana Jones movie ever made.
Yeah, the last one that counts. Yeah. And so they had all these professional, great screenplay, writers come in. And I could name, and I remember seeing this. I've never liked this movie. Never. It foreshadows everything that happens in the entire movie. And it's, you know, like the guy with the nail gun that's working on Danny Glover's house. He's got the nail gun that scares him. Oh, that's going to come back at the end, and it does. Um, Riggs with doing the popping his shoulder out of joint to get out of the straitjacket. Oh, that's going to come back in the end. Every single thing they do at the beginning of the movie comes back at the end of the film. So it is so predictable
It's
that
foreshadowing, man.
it's so bad. It's so obvious. And
Wow.
I hated not everything has to be freaking George Lucas. You don't need to have everything linked. Oh, your name is Riggs? Hey, I killed your wife. What are the fucking chances? Oh, well, you're on some other case and we put a hit out on you and it was your wife who was in the car and not you. Why did we need that? I mean, granted, it gives him more reason to kill the guy, but it's like, once again,
Makes,
we don't need it. She just died in a car accident. It was a freak accident. I
I mean,
fucking,
it gives Riggs a chance to avenge his wife.
but he's already avenging like three people. I mean, it's where I wrote some of these down here. Okay, because I was getting so annoyed. Okay, dislocating soldier, house being remodeled. Gee, that's going to come back later on that they're going to fight in the remodeled house, and they do. Nail gun, Riggs' dead wife, bad one-liners. The jokes in these are so. Every single sentence out of Riggs' mouth is a joke. Every one. You could sit there, I mean, you could sit and go, hey, look, there's a dead puppy in the street, and he'd make a joke. Everything was a fucking joke. It's like, enough, enough. Um, and then
Tell me how you really feel, John.
and Riggs is an absolute asshole in this movie. Riggs shooting a fish tank and killing all the fish. So all the fish are dead, all because he's trying to be Mr. Smart Guy with our villains. Um, Dumping the grocery basket on other groceries that go onto the floor so someone else has to clean it up. So he's hitting on this new girl who, by the way, at the beginning of the movie, talks to Glover's wife about how much he loved his wife and what happened to his wife, only then for him to immediately hit on Patsy Kensit, who was like a thing for about 5 minutes back in the day. And I guess, kind of throw all of his wife's stuff away. So we just had this big explanation of how she died. And now he's hitting on this other girl. So I guess your wife doesn't mean anything to you. And then I knew instantly, oh, she's gonna die. She does. Um, and just what a dick. He's hitting on her in the store. She has the whole basket full of groceries, like fruits and vegetables. He takes it, Riggs takes it, empties it on other stuff, and it all falls on the floor. And the employee's like, hey, don't do that. And they're laughing and he runs out. What a dick. Talk about making other people's lives fucking difficult. Diplomatic immunity. I fucking hated that throughout the whole movie. It reminded me of Evil Dies Tonight. How many times they said diplomatic immunity, and after our main villain shoots Riggs like 3 or 4 times, and then Danny Glover's aiming his gun at him, and he holds up the badge, diplomatic immunity, and then what? He's not expecting him to shoot him. He's totally in the open. He gets shot in the head, which he deserved. Sam, Riggs leaving Sam while the trailer is being shot up. So he tells the girl to get out, who he just met, but yet leaves this fucking dog in the trailer. So then the dog has to run out by itself.
I thought the dog was already out. Remember, he chased the dog out when they were having.
But they don't go back for him. They don't do anything.
I mean, he's still alive. He's in the 3rd movie.
Dog's on his own. Endless Three Stooges jokes. My God, the amount of Three Stooges jokes that was in this movie. And that's all because Mel Gibson has a hard-on for the Three Stooges. That's why it's in the film, in the first movie and all that stuff.
You will not disrespect the Three Stooges on my watch.
I will. In this context, I will. As much as I love the Three Stooges. So these are reasons why I didn't like it that much.
Guess what, John? Guess what? Diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity. My friends and I used to say that all the time, just because it annoyed us so much, and it just we thought it was so, and it just seemed to be just screenwriting by the numbers. It's like, oh well, we need another Lethal Weapon film. Now, stuff I did like the toilet, the bomb with the toilet. I thought was funny. I thought that was good. That was the trailer. So I remember that was like the teaser trailer. It was very condensed, but but that was the trailer. Scenes like that I thought were pretty good. I guess he moved locations with the trailer where he lived, because in the first film he has neighbors on both sides. In this one, he's just taking a whole area by himself.
He's like on the part of the beach that's like all that has more rocks and stuff.
Yeah, I think they called it a cove in the retrospective.
Yeah.
So it's So
he's all by himself at this point.
Yeah. So
Which,
I've been kind of.
I live in an apartment building. I hate neighbors. Hope they didn't hear me.
Yeah. So I've been kind of ranting on and on. What are your feelings? What you talk for a little bit.
I mean, where do I go from there, man? You just like completely destroyed Lethal Weapon 2, man.
I still have things to say about the other ones too.
I mean, well, I enjoyed all 4 movies, to be honest with you. Even Lethal Weapon 2, which we'll get to in a little bit, when we get to our rankings and stuff. Lethal Weapon 2 is the one I've seen the most. So that's why I always laugh when I hear diplomatic immunity.
So stupid.
It's one of those so bad it's good kind of deals, if you know what I'm saying. Like it's the most quotable movie. Let's be real here.
I nod my head, but at the same time,
I mean,
apparently it isn't bad. It made more money than the first one. I think it's still the highest grossing one.
Probably. I'm not sure. I don't know about that, but I enjoy. Like I said, I
I already
enjoyed all
looked up the
four of them.
figures.
I just which we'll get to in a little bit when we get to the ranking. I'll explain my reasonings for my least favorite one, but I don't. The only reason it's on four is that I have to put something there.
I mean, I have issues. I think Lethal Weapon 1 is one of the greatest action movies, one of the greatest top buddy movies, one of the greatest. I mean, it's right up there with Die Hard and a lot of these other movies. It's just, if you just look at the beginning credits of who did the music, who edited the film. I mean, like Stuart Barb, I think is Stuart Bard, who eventually went off to do Executive Decision with Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal, is a great editor. I mean, everything from the cinematographer, everything. Lethal Weapon is a perfect action film. Like, it is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then with part 3, which according to this retrospective had the most problems. So it's almost like the Karate Kid part 3 problems, and it even had the same writer. He came in to take over for a little bit, and Jeffrey Boom, he was fired. He was like hired and then fired and then rehired and then fired. And so if you look at the writing credits,
A
according
lot of
to,
rehiring and firing.
yeah, I mean, it's I think at that point it just gets to like more like ego, and they canned him and then brought in the writer from Karate Kid, and then they were writing together, and then Jeffrey Boom said, no, I want to write by myself, so they got rid of him. But the writing credits are weird, according to the Writers Guild, the WGA, is that they had to do it in a certain way because of how many drafts were written and percentages of what was written. And so the credits are kind of screwy looking, but it's one of those where, like, Joe Pesci was such a huge hit, and I hated him when I saw part 2. I couldn't stand that character. Okay. Oh, okay, got. Oh, okay. Got. Oh, okay. Got. Okay. What are you? Do you have like a brain problem? Um,
Hey,
they
he taught us the most valuable lesson ever is never go to the drive-through. You know why? Because they screw you.
That is the best scene probably in the film, and he's 100% correct on that. And then they try to redo it in the other 2 movies, and it fails. So it just doesn't work, because it's like, once again, okay, so people love that scene and they quote it, and so now we got to try to somehow get it in the other 2 movies. But after watching part 2 again, I think he's the best thing in part 2. And Mel Gibson or Briggs is the worst thing in part 2. The condom scene, I think, is the condom commercial. I thought was pretty funny with the daughter. I thought that was funny. Especially with how old school, Murtaugh is. But then with something like part 3 with Leo, he was an afterthought. So he is so forced into that movie that if you take him out, nothing would change. So he's absolutely, completely pointless to part 3.
But the second one, he was like the one they were trying to protect. The third one, he was like a real estate agent or something like that.
Yeah, he went semi legit to be like a real estate agent.
And then the third one, he was trying to be like a PI or something.
Yeah. So they give him different jobs, but he just doesn't seem
know how to stick with one job, man.
Yeah, I guess he's not really good at anything. It's I don't know, just they mentioned this retrospective that Joe Pesci got the character from a kid that he met, that he was at like an amusement park, and the kid asked him where a ride was, but the kid would come up and go like, be like, okay, where's the Ferris wheel? And then Joe Pesci would say like, oh, it's right there. Okay, I got it, yeah, I got it, yeah, okay, got it. And then the kid would leave. and he thought that would be funny for this character. And but then I think now he's just kind of, by the time that 3 and 4 hit, where he doesn't really serve a purpose except just to have him in it. Uh, uh,
I mean, Joe Pesci still is the show, man. Come on, Joe Pesci's a great actor.
well, he is when he's with Martin Scorsese. Sure, every movie he's made with Scorsese, including The Irishman, is I think is good. You know, Raging Bull and Goodfellas and Casino, he's great. But I can live with
I know
him
I know him
outside.
mostly from Home Alone.
Oh yeah, well, and people love him in My Cousin Vinny,
Oh, he's in
right?
My Cousin.
Who plays
Okay.
who's yeah? Isn't he the lawyer in My Cousin Vinny?
I don't know. I haven't seen My Cousin Vinny. I have to watch that at some point.
I think he is. Um, I don't want to get this wrong and have somebody correct me. Um, yeah, there he is. Yeah, yeah, he's in My Cousin Vinny. He plays the lawyer.
Okay.
Surprisingly, the Karate Kid's lawyer. Uh, um, so Ralph Macchio is in that. But everybody loves My Cousin Vinny. I turned it off. I just wasn't
I've never
feeling
seen it,
it.
so
Yeah,
I can't comment on it.
I would say you're not missing anything, but many people would disagree with me. I hate the film Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag. I did a reviews after midnight on that. I did a giant rant for like 30 minutes about how much I hate that film. Uh, um, but it's yeah, I don't know. I think he just becomes pointless after a while. It's just we have to now that our script is complete. Oh, let's make sure he's in it.
Okay.
So, and if you even notice, Renee Russo, I kept forgetting her first name. Even with her in part 3, uh, Murtaugh disappears for like 20 minutes. He's not even in the movie because he's like off being drunk somewhere. So they
Mhm.
even took time away from one of the main characters to give to a brand new character because they
Yeah.
wanted Riggs to have some sort of relationship, you know,
Mhm.
which is fine because I mean, I guess eventually, he needs to get over his wife. It's just
Yeah.
weird how that was such a big deal in part 2, and then he's hooking up with, you know, some chick that he just met, and then so I mean, I don't think maybe he should date anybody. I mean, he does mention this. I think that yeah, he mentions it in part 4, maybe with the marriage thing, that all the
Yeah.
women that he's fallen in love with have died, and it's because he's a cop.
Yeah.
So
He said that on the boat when they sent Leo to go get the gun or something.
yeah. So I mean, it's
Nah,
and
I'm not
then
trying to be rude, man, but these guys are jerks to poor Leo, man.
yeah, and Leo mentions that he says that's okay because he's like I've never had I did like at the end of part 4, and it should be
Yeah.
goofy, but I liked it. Is his frog story about as a kid how he had a pet frog that he loved, and I went, oh my God, is when he tells us that it fell off of his bike. He had it in a box and he ran over it with his back tire. And I'm like, oh my God, that's awful.
Poor
And
frog.
yeah,
Poor froggy.
and yeah, so in a way that that these group of people now are that frog. So he doesn't mind being run over. Like I guess he could be the frog in a way that they treat poorly, but he doesn't mind it because it's his family. I actually like that scene. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty good. I like that Riggs kind of looked at him as like a weird guardian angel,
Hmm.
you know, and that he does get accepted. It takes 3 movies, but
Yeah.
it's but it's so yeah. I mean, it's well, you have stuff to share. What do you want to share your stuff now, and so people don't have to just hear me?
Do you want to show off the stuff that we have? Or? I
Well,
only
I
have
only,
2 things.
I mean, I just have this, so I've already showed. This is it. So, and like I said, it's
Pretty much,
effective.
I have the
So,
exact same thing, but it's different. I'll explain here in a minute. The first thing I have is the Blu-ray set This is
Yes.
in
I want that. Yeah.
the nice sturdy box. This is what it looks like regularly,
Okay.
which comes with all 4 movies. So there's Lethal Weapon 1, 2,
On their own disc, the way it should be.
all on their own discs. 3, Lethal Weapon 4, and there's a bonus disc,
Oh,
which
nice.
has what is it? Which has the new retrospect. I'm sorry, new retrospective featurettes. I am too old for this. You know what? Lethal Weapon and the Hollywood Monster created, and the Hollywood Monster it created, which I believe is a documentary. So,
Sounds
or
like
it's
one.
like it's that's pretty much all it is. Just that. It's a sit down with Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and Richard Donner. All 3 of them are sitting down there just kind of talking about the series from like the beginning, and then having like some of the other people talking about like when they made the movie and stuff like that. So it's worth it alone for the bonus disc. But unfortunately, like you said before, these are not the director's cut. These are the theatrical cuts.
Yeah, and
So,
you can definitely tell from one, they don't say director's cuts like these do.
yeah.
But also the running times on them. I mean, that's
Mhm.
like the Lethal Weapon director's cut. It's
117 minutes.
that's a director's cut.
Yeah. So
Where am I?
here
Oh, here it is. Yeah.
I'll just read off the times. The director's cut of the theatrical cut of Lethal Weapon is 109 minutes, while the director's cut is 117 minutes. Lethal Weapon 2 is 114 minutes for the theatrical and 118 minutes for the director's. So like only like 4 minutes longer. Lethal Weapon 3 is 118 for the theatrical and 121 for the directors. And then Lethal Weapon is 127 because there was no
Yeah.
director's cut of Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a difference. So I think it's worth getting both.
Yeah.
You know.
And I also got the DVDs.
Are yours the same as mine? Were
This
it's
is the
two,
same. This is the same one.
just a different
Um,
picture?
yeah, it just has the
Oh, it's the same
have
back.
the yeah, it's the same back.
Yeah.
It's just a different cover.
Huh.
So the only difference between yours and mine is that they got Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 on one disc.
See, that looks
Kinda,
that's oh, you don't have to flip it?
no,
Well, that's better, I think.
but the problem is that they're kind of crammed onto one disc, though. So it kind of makes the quality look even worse.
Oh.
So I mean, I guess if you're gonna get the Blu-ray, you'll have the Blu-ray to watch the theatrical cut. And if you want to watch the director's cut, you can watch this. It doesn't look horrible, but you can tell it's been compressed a little bit because they kind of like shove them on there.
Yeah, they should
But
just have done a box set with both.
they should have. They should have.
You know.
You know why? Because the people screw you, man. They screw you.
They screw you on the Blu-ray. They screw you on the Blu-ray. Words have not
I'm
been
gonna make him pay more
better
money.
said. Yeah, and it's yeah, because a lot of stuff is considered when you do the director's cut the actual versions now, like
Yeah.
Aliens. Cameron's cut, the one that's like 3 hours, is now considered to be the actual
There's a
cut
director's
of the
cut of
movie.
Aliens?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I
There's
did not know that. I need to track that down now.
Yeah, that was a very big deal when it came out because it has like 30 minutes of extra footage in it that they cut because they wanted to kind of fit it in a certain
Okay.
time frame in the theaters. But yeah, on the
Which one's that? Is that 1 or 2?
Well, actually, if you get the box set, that's kind of like a book. Everyone has the theatrical version, and everyone has a different cut. So there's two versions of
Okay.
each movie, including like a bonus
Okay.
disc and a booklet. So like
Okay.
the
Awesome.
first, yeah, the first film has Ridley Scott's director's cut, which adds
Okay.
in one scene, and then Aliens is all the stuff with Newt and the parents and all that stuff.
Okay.
And then part three is considered to be an assembly cut, so it's more of like a producer's cut. And then
Okay.
part four, I think, is that's like a studio cut type of thing.
Okay.
But it's definitely worth getting. So and you know, when we since we just did Rambo, this reminded me while I was watching Lethal Weapon 4, it's human trafficking. It's just just China, where Rambo 5 is human trafficking, but in Mexico. But yet, for some reason, Stallone is a racist, but Richard Donner isn't. So I guess, you know, okay.
It's the far left going crazy, man. That's all. That's all we can say.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if they did a Lethal Weapon 5 and the subject of that was human trafficking from China, since China's not in great standing with us these days, maybe liberals would look at that as being racist. I don't know. But I'm not really, I mean, Stallone is saying
Mm,
human trafficking is
who
bad and
knows?
prostitution is bad. But yet over here, but for Lethal Weapon 4, it's I guess it's okay.
Who knows?
And
The political realm has gone crazy. That's all I'm gonna
yeah.
say.
Ugh.
And that's
But
on both sides. That's on both sides.
oh,
So,
these days I can agree with that. So,
so
but you have other stuff, right?
yeah. I while I was doing some research over it's on the Wikipedia page as well. I was looking to see like what other stuff they had with the Lethal Weapon name. Apparently there's a couple of there was a TV show which you just mentioned earlier. I guess it only ran for 3 seasons. It got canceled. It ran from 2016 to 2019. Never seen the show, so I can't comment on it. But evidently, from what I understand, it was a reboot. They kind of just like redid the Lethal Weapon movies, but in the television show.
Yeah, I guess that in that retrospective I watched, I think they showed them meeting.
Okay.
There was no sound on it because the guy was talking over it, but it's yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's like a completely reboot.
Yeah. So evidently, I don't know if they were following the movies beat for beat or they were doing their own thing. I'm not sure, but evidently, I don't know if it did well or it did start off good at first, and then by season three, it just lost interest in it, and they just decided to cut it. So
Right.
that ran. I guess the final season was in 2019, so it ran for 3 years. So
Okay.
there was a video game called Lethal Weapon. Very creative.
Yes.
Um, it was released right around the same time as Lethal Weapon 3. So it's essentially Lethal Weapon 3, the video game, but because it's a video game, they can't just call it Lethal Weapon 3. So they just decided to call it Lethal Weapon. And that
Okay.
was released in 1992 and 1993 on the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Game Boy, and the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
So that was interesting. I don't know. I never played the game, so I
I
don't
didn't know
know.
that there was a game. I'm guessing it wasn't a
And
massive
never.
hit because we didn't get more.
Uh, Probably not because back in the 80s and 90s, when they made every time a movie was a hit, they made a video game right afterwards. So I mean the classic story of one video game that actually caused the video game crash of the 80s was E.T.
Oh.
It did so terrible it caused the video game crash.
Ah.
So That's the
E.T.
story for
go
another time.
home.
Huh?
E.T. go home.
Yeah, really, right? Could cause my video game crash. There was also a pinball machine,
Oh, that's funny.
which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
I guess also based on Lethal Weapon 3. So, and then there was a theme park ride. I don't know if you knew this from Warner Brothers Movie World.
Like, what would the ride be? You go around shooting people? You blow
I
things up?
guess it was just. I guess it was like a theme park where uh, I'm assuming kind of like how Universal does the things where they show you scenes from the movie and you're riding through and you know you're going through like different scenes of the movie, I guess,
Okay.
or
All
all
right.
four movies. Well, it's no longer there. It was only available from like 1995 to 2012, and it is
Wow, that seems
now
too long.
Arkham. Huh?
That seems too long.
I guess. I mean, it's now Arkham Asylum Shock Therapy.
Okay. I just have no idea what a ride would be for that. Like,
I didn't even know Warner Brothers Movie World was a theme park.
I didn't know that either. Okay, we're learning
So
things that
evidently, Warner
people need
Brothers
to
has their own
know.
theme park.
All right. Okay.
Didn't
All
know
right.
this. So yeah, well, that's all the other stuff I got. That was pretty interesting to share. So there you go, guys. You learned something. Warner
Yeah,
Brothers has a
I
theme
did.
park now.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So
But you also have something that tells the differences between the cuts, right?
yeah. You want me to go?
Yeah,
I
let's go
have
through that.
I looked at the there's a website. I'll have to send you the website. Which will tell you like scene for scene like what scenes are different. So in Lethal Weapon 1, the scene where Riggs is getting dressed in the morning, when you see him first, is extended to the point where you see him destroy the TV.
Okay. I remember
That's
that.
an
Yeah.
extended part.
Poor TV.
Then later on, there's a scene where Murtaugh is at the shooting range. He stretches out his hand and he sees his hand shake. He closes it, like it looks like he's concentrating, and then he opens his hand and it stays straight. So that was one of the scenes that was not in the theatrical cut.
Okay.
The sniper scene, which is the one with the school, with where he saves the kids from the sniper, that was not in the theatrical cut. The one with the tree, when he's buying the drugs from the tree lot, that was in the theatrical cut, and I guess that scene was in both.
Yeah.
Um, the scene where Rick buys the brand new TV, where he comes in the trailer and he's telling the dog, "Hey, look, I got a brand new TV. Now we can watch the Stooges again."
Just reference the Three Stooges
He
because
loves the
apparently that's
Stooges,
the
man.
only channel that Riggs has is the Three Stooges channel. I guess he
And
doesn't know that
then
other things exist.
the last one is when Riggs pays the prostitute to watch the Three Stooges with him.
See, that tells you kind of how darker this movie is than the other ones because he's out there getting
Yeah.
prostitutes. So
Not only that, it's just I mean, she even asked him in the director's cut. He even asked him like, "Wait, are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." He's basically he just doesn't want to be alone. He just wants to.
yeah,
He wants
well,
company.
and he lies to her too. She goes, "Are you a cop?" And he goes, "No."
So those are the extra scenes that are in Lethal Weapon 1. Lethal Weapon 2 and 3 only have like 3 extra scenes. Lethal Weapon 2 has the scene where they're coming out of the police station and they see the mechanic putting the windshield in, and then Murtaugh's
Yeah,
like, he's like,
yeah, his
I thought
wife's
you were supposed
car.
to give me
Yeah,
a brand new one, and he's like, we're just gonna have to work with what we got.
right.
So
Okay, I remember.
that was a scene that was not in the theatrical cut. Uh, Riggs flirting with the girls in the hotel in the hot tub. That
Which
was
serves no purpose, but
it doesn't.
now that you bring it up, they do mention in that retrospective that that is a scene that Richard Donner actually liked being put back in. But it serves no purpose.
No. And then Leo remembering the address by guessing with lucky numbers.
That's yeah. I mean, we got to show Leo doing something. You know, he's got to add something to the story. So
I mean, it was only the seventh guess or the, and then when they finally get to the scene, he's like, this is the ninth time you guessed it. It better be right.
they should have up that thing from SpongeBob 8 hours later, and it's just and he's still guessing the numbers.
There you go, the John Ward cut of Lethal Weapon 2. And then Lethal Weapon 3, the scene where I guess Murtaugh's getting ready to go out, and his wife comes in and says, "Are you forgetting something?" and makes him wear the bulletproof vest. It's like you only have a couple of days to retire. Don't die on me now.
Right.
The carpenter fixing Riggs' trailer, which you said about where his daughter comes and tells him, "Hey, my dad didn't come home. You know,
which is the same guy from part 2 that's working on Murdoch's house. Yeah, so it's nice that they had the same actors come back, you know, instead of somebody being, except for they did say one of the black cops that's in the first and second film, it's the same actor, but he's playing 2 different cops, which is kind of confusing. So they don't know why but they said that because he's playing a different cop, he doesn't die in part 2, or like that character doesn't die in part 2, but he does because he's playing a new character.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So it's like, oh, okay, so the guy that you played in part 1 is still alive, but the new character you're playing in part 2 dies with all the other cops. So that original character, I guess, is still alive. So he could come back and still play that cop.
There you go. I mean, I guess maybe they needed an extra guy, I don't know, and they couldn't find someone, and they just told him, "Hey, just come fill the role or something."
You would recognize him. He's been in like a ton of stuff, but I don't know his name though. But he's one of those like, oh, I recognize that guy. Like he's just been in like a ton of movies and TV shows and stuff.
Yeah. And then the last scene from 3 is the scene where they're interrogating the guy that was like they were trying to get the main bad guy from 3. They were trying to get his name out of one of his his cronies almost. The scene where she's in the car like making the wheels turn, and they have his head down there, and they're like, "Watch yourself! You get your hand cut off if you get too close to the wheels." And they're trying to tell him like, "Hey, we'll run your head over if you don't tell us a name." And then he,
So I'm guessing that's a scene I missed then because I had to go for that second part, watch the theatrical cut. So because that does not sound familiar to me at all. Okay.
Okay, so that's one of the ones in the director's cut that was not in the theatrical cut.
Okay.
You know the guy that what is his name? The ex marshal or chief or whatever. The bad guy from 3, the one that was like used to be a cop or whatever. The one guy that they kept saying like, "Hey, you know, we're out of this deal. If you showed me you were going to take care of these cops and you didn't, I'm out of the deal." And the
black guy, the guy that he's walking with at the housing place at the construction.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that he'll kill him if he goes out of the deal.
Yes.
That guy?
Yeah, he's the one that's being interrogated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely didn't see that.
So it's him.
Okay.
So it's him, and then she puts the puts her foot like the whole way down and it goes in reverse.
Do you know how bad these cops are? I mean, this is internal affairs and two cops. I don't know if by that point in the movie if they're captains or if they're just sergeants, but because they get that promotion. These are horrible people. Internal affairs, the cops can't do that shit. Look what they're doing. But yet we're
They
finding it
don't.
funny.
They don't become captains until the fourth movie.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Part four. So they're still
Yeah.
sergeants. So they're still out there doing these horrible things that we're finding funny. This is,
Okay. Well, since we've talked about, I know you went to length about two. How do you feel about 3 and 4?
But I like 3, but I kept saying this is the worst villain in even with diplomatic immunity guy. This is the worst villain. This guy is so wooden and so cardboard that I'm like, what is he? What? Who is this? They had a great chance to take an ex-cop and do something really interesting with him. And I don't get that with his reputation that he could just drive up to one of those areas where the cops sit and check ID, that he
Yeah.
could just flash a badge or his ID and they're like, oh yeah, Sergeant, blah, blah, go on. And it just seemed really weird. And then when I watched the retrospective, Richard Donner didn't care. He was more focused on Murdoch's family and the relationship with Riggs and Russo, that he did not care about the villain at all, which is why it's such a crappy villain. And he has a lame death. His death is really uninteresting. Part 1, we get that fucking great fight with Gary Busey, who is seriously scary in this movie,
Yes.
before his accident. And that's when he was just kicking ass. Like he was in Predator 2, and he does the great line of, was it like,
how did he pass away again?
he's still alive, isn't he?
I think Gary Busey passed away.
I
Is
think
he passed? No, he didn't. I could be getting him confused with somebody else.
Gary Busey. Yeah, he's still alive.
Okay. I'm getting him confused with somebody.
He was a advocate for not wearing a motorcycle helmet. He was a big motorcycle enthusiast. And when the laws came out to wear the motorcycle helmet, he refused to do it and got into a massive accident that just screwed with his brain. If you Google him, like half of his face looks like it's melted off from this accident and the surgery and all that, that now he's all messed up. And just mentally and physically and all that stuff. But before then, I mean, the guy was, he was Buddy Holly back in the day. He played in the Buddy Holly story. That's how thin and everything he was. He could play Buddy Holly. And he's also in like The Big Wednesday and a ton of flicks. And in this, he's very scary, and he's awesome in Predator 2. And he was even in when he had his kind of moment, he was in a great film called Bulletproof, which is just like a bad B action movie, which I absolutely love. But he's, you get that extended fight scene that uses like 3 different types of martial arts at the beginning of the first one. You have the good fight scene in part 2, where the guy who looks like David Warner, the guy who killed Gibson's wife, they're having that giant fight, which, by the way, Gibson was supposed to die. Briggs was supposed to die. In fact, they mentioned in the retrospective that the shot, the camera pulling away of Murtaugh holding Riggs is dead. They killed him, and they had 2 screenings, one where he dies and one where he doesn't. And of course, the screening where he doesn't die is the one they went with. But that shot with the camera pulling away was going to have Eric Clapton singing Knocking on Heaven's Door. which is
Okay.
used in a different scene. But that was, yeah, they're going to kill him in part 2. Just like he was
They,
supposed to die
they
in
still
part
use
4.
they still use that song in that scene.
It's just in a different, it's not, it's a
Yeah,
different
it's
song at the end.
yeah. Well, it's they use it during that scene because when he goes to him, he thinks he's dead,
That's,
and
yeah.
when he
But when the
yeah,
camera's pulling back, it's a different song. It was
okay,
meant to be when the camera's pulling back. That's when the song was going to hit. But yeah, when Murtaugh thinks he's dead is when it plays.
yeah,
And then in part 4, he was supposed to drown. And because Mel Gibson said, I want my character to die. I don't want to do anymore. And he after part 3, he was very adamant about not making a part 4.
yeah.
That he felt he didn't want, but then he did because the money was good. But they had that good fight scene with the David Warner looking guy in that kind of area with all the shipping containers. That was good. And then part 4, of course, fucking Jet Li,
Jet
you
Li,
know.
man, freaking Jet Li.
And they
I
said
think
that, oh god.
that was the best. I think he was the best part of 4. I'm sorry for Jet Li, man.
It's sad,
He
yeah,
has
that he
that.
didn't.
He was a perfect. He played the perfect bad guy, man. He was just like he felt like a threat to be someone to be reckoned with, you know.
Yeah, because I wondered, like they mentioned with part 2 that the South African like consulate and stuff like that did not
Mhm.
like the film because it showed them in a really bad light. And then I was
Yeah,
wondering, like, well, what would China think? This is showing that China, is involved in human trafficking and that they're murdering people, but I don't think they brought that up. And Jet Li, of course, normally plays heroes, and in this he plays the villain. But they mentioned 2 things with him: is one, they knew Riggs could not defeat him on his own, so that's why it's both of them, Riggs and
mhm,
Murtaugh, fighting him.
yeah,
And also that Richard Donner had to tell Jet Li to slow down with the martial arts, that he was moving so fast that the camera couldn't pick it
couldn't
up.
catch him.
Yeah.
Wow,
So that's how quick he was moving. And so, yeah, he had to do all of his martial arts
and like a
slower.
slow motion kind of deal.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't they do the same thing with Bruce Lee? Didn't they have to
Yeah.
tell him to slow down too?
I would think so. Because there's, I forget what film it is, but there's the one Bruce Lee movie where he's going like this, and it's all slow motion and the hands are all kind of blurred.
Hmm.
Because I guess he's moving so quickly,
Yeah,
but it's in slow motion. So you kind of like, it's just one giant hand. That was
yeah,
kind of cool. But so you have all these great fight scenes, and then at the end of part 3, he just shoots the guy with the cop killer bullets, and that's it. They're done. It's
yeah.
he's dead, and then it just kind of continues, and it's like, okay, this is because I guess he's an ex-cop or like a corrupt cop, so he's not really a threat. He doesn't really have any henchmen. He just has men.
Yeah.
So I guess that's. I mean,
But
I
then
guess we.
again, he was coming after him with like with a tractor, so he kind of had to, kill him the best way to know how, and why not kill him with his, give him a taste of his own medicine, and turn the cop killer back on him.
That I didn't mind, and they do mention that in the retrospective, is that they really had to go out of their way to make this villain evil because he just wasn't evil because Donner didn't care. So they created the cop killer bullets. They had the young kid that they were kind of mentoring, and they took the vest off of him, and then he dies because he gets shot right through that like metal barrel.
Mhm.
And so things like that he kidnaps the captain.
Yeah,
So they tried different stuff, but he just wasn't interesting. There was just nothing really interesting about him. It just seemed more like, I like part 3, but it just seems more like a hodgepodge
yeah,
of because I guess that they just had so many problems with it really reminded me of Karate Kid part 3. It really did, especially with having the writer from that on there.
yeah.
um And even the writer for Karate Kid 3 thinks Karate Kid 3 is the worst out of the original 3. So it's like, oh, okay. And then you came on and did like what may be some of the worst writing for part 3. So he's a good writer, but it's just, but it's, and part 4, I thought just worked. I liked part 4. They said that was the one with the biggest budget because everybody demanded so much money that for at the end of part 3, the studio was only going to take out 3 people to dinner, and it was Richard Donner, Mel Gibson, and Jeffrey Boone, and they were going to give them Hummers as a thank you. And Richard Donner said, "Oh no, we're bringing, we're bringing everybody," and so it ended up being like 8 people. And I might be getting the third person wrong, but I know Jeffrey Boone was in there. But oddly, Danny Glover was not part of the original 3. He was, but the studio said the reason why part 4 happened was because of them giving them the Hummers, that they got these vehicles as a thank you. And it cost like a shitload of money. And that's why they all came back for part 4. And then they wanted new blood. So that's when Chris Rock came in, because they wanted somebody younger. And then they wanted, and of course that's when also the martial arts were really big with Jackie Chan and John Woo. There's even the John Woo shot where they're all aiming guns at each other. And that's why Jet Li's there. So I really enjoy part 4, except for Renee's character screaming at everybody in the hospital at the end. It's so uncomfortable. I can just imagine people in the theater just kind of like, is this meant to be funny? This is really
very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very
well, and you could tell my big problem with the series is Riggs. And I like the series, but now after rewatching it and like really watching it for this, I think Riggs is a problem. I think that he endangers way too many people's lives, and it's not by accident. All this shit is on purpose, and Murtaugh is constantly telling him to stop, and he's constantly getting Murtaugh almost killed. Like at the beginning of part 4, going out in his underwear, which you could laugh at the beginning of the movie. But what if the guy just torched him? Or just shot him with a gun. How it's not for it's I don't know. I think Riggs is a huge, and all the jokes and
he's like, oh, do you think the underwear works? He's like, no, I just wanted to see if you do it.
Yeah, and he does that throughout the whole thing. And I get like the condoms tree, and I get like the newspaper ad that's the year later that they keep putting back up. That type of stuff is funny, because that's what guys do to one another, But putting him in situations where he's going to be killed, I think is a problem. And it's like, if you want to die, Riggs, then die. But why include other people, especially when this guy's got like a granddaughter and he's got like a full family, and you have a dog or two, and that's really it. So oh, and they save animals. That's a good thing. They save a cat and the dog, and the Rottweiler scene. I love that with him googly eyed with the Rottweiler dog. I thought it was playing with the biscuits, the dog biscuits. So that dog, once the dog wasn't mean looking, it was very sweet. It was a very like nice looking dog. And I didn't like that Renee's character was going to shoot it. But Riggs is like, shoot as many people as you want, just don't shoot a dog. So good.
Exactly. And I think even Riggs even tells her, he goes, you can shoot people's fine, but the dog no.
Yeah, and that's why I get confused about like the politics of this. It is obviously their messaging, they have to, I mean, if they're wearing a shirt that's like anti-tuna, or they have signs outside that say, save South Africa and stuff like that. And stuff that I just want to know where where Gibson was, like what, and him being the guy in the movie. I mean, his name is first. Like what was he thinking during a lot of this stuff? I mean, it's like I'm guessing maybe he's an animal lover, so you know, I mean, his character has a dog,
Yeah. I mean,
so
I don't know, man. Don't I think like I said before, I think we gotta look at the political system. I don't think we can compare the politics of today to this film, because the politics of today is completely different than the politics back then. If you know what I mean. Like now, it's kind of like, you know, back then it was more like, hey, you know, more stuff that actually mattered. Today is kind of like, whatever makes us look better. If you
right.
know what I'm saying. I mean, obviously, all the politicians are gonna treat it like, oh, what's gonna make it better, and Hollywood being hand in hand with politics, they're gonna say, okay, let's see which party are we gonna make look better this time around. Let's try to get everything going. But back then, I feel like it was a little more, you know, meaningful, maybe.
Yeah, I can't get. I'm listening to you and I'm looking at this at the same time. Like Gibson complimented filmmaker Michael Moore on the documentary Fahrenheit 9/11. Um, it's just it's so weird. It's yeah, I don't know what he is,
Mm,
but it's kind of like I've been watching a lot of Michael Bay movies, and I've been doing some videos on him, and watching a lot of stuff on him too. And you would think Michael Bay, with the way his movies are, is he's conservative, but he's not. There's only been one time when he's ever brought up politics, and that was at a convention, like a Comic-Con, where he talked about having a conversation with Obama, and he liked what Obama had to say. But if you look at his movies, they're very conservative. They're all about, like if you look at Armageddon, like Bruce Willis and his team are blue collar working guys on an
mhm.
oil rig who get their hands dirty. But when you
Even
look at,
going as far as quoting the Bible at one point. The president of the United States quoted the Bible at one point.
see, I don't think he's not even, it's, he loves the military,
Hmm.
but hates the people that run it. He, like, to go back to
You know,
Armageddon, he hates, like if you watch it, all like a lot of the higher ups are all idiots. Like he loves the American flag, but he hates politicians. And he loves dogs. His dogs are in his movies. So he's an animal lover. He absolutely loves animals,
so it
especially
sounds like he's
dogs.
more in the middle than on either side.
Yeah, because if you a lot of his stuff, like if you look at his earlier like music videos and stuff, especially for Meatloaf,
Hmm.
it's very American. Red, like flags, the American flag is and planes flying over, and it's very much so. It's really hard to tell with some of these people. It's difficult. You would just think maybe the guy who made Passion of the Christ and who screams at his girlfriend or wife while drunk and then has drunken rants about Jewish people and
Yeah,
might not be very liberal.
which I don't understand how you can be a screaming about Jews and a negative light, and then make a movie about Jews. You make a movie about the Passion of the Christ.
Because I
I
don't
don't
think a
understand.
lot of them see Christ as being Jewish. I think they see him as being Christian. That's why I was
But
saying earlier, like, no
he's from a
offense.
Jewish background. That's
Right.
no, I'm not. I'm not taking no offense to it. I'm
Yeah,
just
because
saying, like,
it's kind of like when
it's just
it's just it's weird to see where these like I know Donner and his like Richard Donner and his wife are liberals and Danny Glover and
Mhm.
a lot of these people are left leaning, but then you have Gibson who's making fun of gay people in the Lethal Weapon movies, and then like I said in Braveheart, the king throws his gay son out the window. So you're kind of like, well, that I don't know. You could say he's I don't know because his dad the church that his dad created is very very religious. I remember being a fan of his from Road Warrior is I went back and I watched his other films, so stuff like Tim and Gallipoli and all these films that he made before that, and then he's had his there's a few different Mel Gibsons, and I think Bird on a Wire is the start of like is the start of another phase, and it's because if you look him up, it's weird is that he goes through these cycles, and you can almost be like, so I don't know why this doesn't just show everything that he's done. Oh, here it is. Okay, films. So you have like, I'll just say the original Mad Max
yeah,
up to Mrs. Soulful. So you're looking at like 79 up to 84. That's one Mel Gibson. Then Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which is 85, up to like Bird on a Wire, which is 90. That's another one. And then Air America up through like Braveheart, which is 95. That's another. So he has his different phases that he's been in. And it's like, I remember him being, I think it was Diane Sawyer. There was an interview and she showed him the Old People magazine and it says Sexiest Man Alive. And it's a picture of him from the movie The River. And he goes, oh, that guy. Yeah, I don't even know who that guy is anymore. Because I guess he substituted alcohol for the religion. And that's kind of where it shifted into the whole anti thing.
yeah.
So it's weird. Like, yeah, I would just be very curious to find out what he agreed with and what he didn't agree with, or maybe he did agree with it all.
Yeah.
I don't know because it's very it's from watching these videos and it's Patrick H. Willem is the guy who put these Michael Bay videos together because
Yeah.
he hated Michael Bay and then became a massive fan. And I would love to interview him about his love for Michael Bay, but he really breaks everything down. And like, you have no idea if Michael Bay's Democrat, Republican, if he's in the middle, if he's what. You just know the guy loves the American flag,
Yeah.
but hates the government. So I think he even called him like a nihilist at one point because of the amount of destruction that is in his movies and the amount of people that probably died, like in the Transformers films. So yeah, it's and now Mel Gibson said he's going to in tribute to Richard Donner probably direct Lethal Weapon 5. And I mean, I guess we'll see what happens there because the guy's he's a really good director, but are those views going to come into it at all? Because
Who
the last thing he
knows?
directed, I think, was Hacksaw Ridge. which I haven't seen yet. I've heard it's very good, but I
It
haven't
was
seen it.
good. It was good. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. But he was also a big supporter of like the sound of, or I don't think it's the Sound of Freedom, it's the Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
And that's something I do want to watch, which is interesting that Lethal Weapon 4 dealt with human trafficking and then he was supporting Sound of Freedom. So I don't know. He's very confusing.
I mean, sometimes I wish some people would leave their politics alone. I
Yeah.
mean, especially in today's world, it's so much, you know, I hate Trump, I hate Biden, I hate this, I hate that. Okay, you can hate who you want to hate, and you can support who you want to support. But bashing people who want to support either the left or the right shouldn't be your decision. That should be whoever's decision is to, that should be my personal decision to vote for who I want to vote for. That should be your decision to vote for who you want to vote for. But me, you know, criticizing you for who you voted for, I just feel like that's just a waste of time, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of doing that. I've now gotten out of that, but 2016, I was very guilty of if you voted for Trump, you're Trump. It's that simple. You hate gay people, you hate women, you hate immigrants, you hate, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not true because some people will vote conservative because that's what they vote for. I vote Democrat because I don't care who's running. I'll just vote Democrat.
Yeah.
So it's if Gavin Newsom ran instead of Biden, I would still vote Democrat.
Yeah.
Unless there was a really, really good, conservative who was running. And I thought about that. But I don't think there was any of them that I could back. And I don't think I could, and I just never liked Trump. I didn't like him on The Apprentice. I've never liked him. So
And that's your right. You have, you know, I don't want to make this into a complete pop political stuff, but what I hate anymore, and I'm not going to say who I voted for, but what I say, you probably already got to guess who I voted for.
oh, I know who you voted for. You've told me.
But the people on here don't. I keep my politics away from online here, because from me, when I was very open about it, I've been called a racist, as homophobic, and all that, and I'm like, you know, why? Because I support someone you don't agree with? Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. You can not agree with somebody, but that doesn't give you the right to say, "Oh, you're homophobic because you voted for,
Well,
so and
that's
so."
the problem is it does give you the right. You can say it because of the First Amendment, but then there's consequences to that action.
Exactly.
So
So, and so I kind of look at it like this, okay? I don't care who you vote for. In 2024, if you vote for Trump, I will still be your friend. If you vote for Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom or whoever eventually comes out on the Democratic side, I will still be your friend. I'm not. I don't care. You as an American citizen have the right to vote for who you think should be the one to run the country.
but now to kind of bring it back to like Lethal Weapon and Mel Gibson and stuff. I mean, what about the politics of these actors? Does it, should somebody be fired because they support Gaza? I mean, it's or if they did a rant about how horrible Jewish people are, should you not go see their movies? I mean, it's like as an example, Michael Graves, who was one of the singers for the Misfits, did a Facebook post that destroyed his career because he had up some hashtags and one said hashtag Pride Boys. Destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. but I'd seen maybe about a year earlier than that. I saw him in concert out here, and I think he's my favorite Misfits singer over Danzig. I like him better. I just like that era better. I still have the poster that he signed and a couple DVDs and stuff like that. Should I now not like him? Should I now not support him? Should I now not listen to his music because he supports the Proud Boys, which are considered to be a terrorist group?
I mean, that's ultimately up to you. I look at it as like, well, I don't care who this person supports. Okay, um choosing my words carefully here. I Stephen King, massive Trump hater.
Oh yeah.
Very, and he's very, and his I got tired of reading his books because for a long time he used to be, um, you know, he would do both sides. The last couple of years, it's all been anti-right, anti-right, anti-right. Do I still like Stephen King? Of course, I still like Stephen King. I'll read his books eventually, but after you hear a bashing so much, you're like, okay, okay, dude, okay, we got you, we got it, we get it, we get it.
Yeah, how many I mean, it's like with Mel Gibson and Braveheart.
Mhm.
If the king did not throw his gay son out the window in real life, why is that in there? Like,
Because
what?
Mel Gibson had a hatred for gay people, I guess. I don't know. Or did he direct that movie too?
Yeah, it won
He
for best
directed Brave.
film. I think he won
Okay,
best
well,
director and best film. And
so that was his decision. So, um, I don't know. I mean, it's historical fiction when you think about it. I mean, historical fiction is you can take an event and you can change it around, and that's what makes it historical fiction. Now, if it was an actual, uh, like beat for beat, like what actually happened, it would be considered a biopic or a like a what's the other word for it? Not a documentary, but like a
I think biopic.
biopic. Okay,
I think,
I
yeah,
was right. I was thinking there was another word for it.
like a docudrama or
Maybe something like that. Well, maybe just like a historical um, war movie, maybe because it's
well,
considered a war movie.
but it's like if you the Woman King is massively wrong, massively historically wrong, but yet um if you say that, you're a racist because you're not supporting. So it's like, but it is wrong. Historically, it is really wrong. And
If
but
they're
yet you're
if they're claiming that something is um if they're going out of their way to say like this is 100% historically accurate, this is exactly how it happened, this is exactly what you need to believe, and it's completely wrong, then yeah, I'll agree with you.
well, Black Cleopatra is one. Netflix. Cleopatra was Macedonian Greek. She was white. She was very white. But yet we're trying to be convinced otherwise. So I don't. So what does that say if when it's on the other side, when you go, no, Cleopatra wasn't black, boom, you're a racist. But yet, Braveheart wins for best movie, and a gay guy is thrown out of a window. So it's
I don't understand it, man. I just don't.
that's
It's confusing, and I'll say this: you're darned if you do, and you're darned if you don't. So one time, if you agree with something in one way, and then you disagree with another thing another way, you're going to be wrong no matter how you look at it. So
Yeah, it's. I think I did post something where I bought a movie that Mel Gibson was in. Like he wasn't the star; he was just one of the people in it. And somebody did comment, like, "Oh, how could you like him?" Type of thing. And it's like, well, I don't know him personally. I like him
I
as
mean,
an actor.
it's
I
not
think he's
like
a.
I can go down the street, knock on the door, and say, "Hey, Mel, want to hang out?"
He'd be like, fuck yeah, son of a bitch, because he'd be all drunk.
Probably.
But I mean, does that mean that I throw this away? I mean, it's because of his actions in the past. Do I now throw
Yes,
this away?
you destroy it. You boycott Mel Gibson. You boycott Warner Brothers. You boycott everybody. The end.
Donald told me to. Donald told me to. So, because I mean,
Not really.
I don't like everything the guy has made, but I like a
No.
lot of the stuff he's made. Dragged on Concrete is friggin' brilliant, and he's great in it. So is Vince Vaughn and some other people too. It's a brutal movie, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was. It's. I think
But then again,
it's tough.
but then again, with this, if you if these people want to go as far as saying, well, you shouldn't like Lethal Weapon because Mel Gibson's in it. Well, what about Danny Glover? Why take away his accomplishment? He's a brilliant actor as well.
Yeah, good point.
I
Okay,
mean,
cool.
if I had to pick a favorite character from Lethal Weapon, I'm gonna say it. I like Martok, but a little bit better than Riggs, because Martok's representing like the people who's like, hey, we got common sense. Don't do this. Riggs is like the psychotic chaos creator.
Yeah,
Uh,
there is a lot of that around. Oh, I wanted to bring this up earlier. I don't know if you noticed this. There's a massive continuity error. Since we're getting all serious, I'll bring up something that's kind of funny. So in Lethal Weapon, remember where there's the jumper and he jumps and he handcuffs the guy and they jump
mhm,
off the roof into the giant like pad.
yeah.
If you go back and watch that, when they jump, the handcuffs break and one of the stuntman grabs the other guy's hand to hold it like they're still cuffed as they fall. And it's in slow motion. So you could see the chain, which is probably plastic or something, as they jump, their hands go like this and it breaks. And one of the guys just goes like that as they fall, as they go down to look like I
I
guess
did
they're
not catch
still.
that actually.
Yeah, I
Now,
even.
when I rewatch this movie, I'm gonna have to check. I'm gonna have to pay attention to that now.
Yeah, because even in that retrospective, they mentioned that scene, and yeah, you could clearly see the chain break, but it's
Oh,
probably a
okay.
one stunt deal, and the
Probably only
guy
had
must have.
one pair of handcuffs at the time. Like, well, let's
If we,
get it going where we
well, and
still
they got
can.
to pay him to do it twice, so it's just and the guy must have noticed. He must be like, "Oh shit," and just grab the guy's hand to make it look like they were still cuffed. So
I mean, it must not have been that obvious because I didn't even recognize. I mean, granted, you're thinking like, oh crap, they're jumping. Oh crap, what are they jumping to? You know what I mean? Like you're not thinking there's something, and then if you're watching the movie for the first time, you're not thinking, oh wait, did those things break, or are they still cupped together or not? You know.
yeah, it's just and also these films because of the time period that they're made, you can't CGI wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
Man, you could tell every single stunt person.
Yeah.
It's like they had Mel Gibson's hair, but man, is that not Mel Gibson? Like it's every close up is Mel Gibson, every wide shot it's the stunt person, and
Yeah.
sometimes they look a little shorter, maybe a little different shaped, and you're just like, wow, that is so. And there's like when Mel Gibson is being dragged in part 4 on the freeway, they have that like
Mhm.
trailer, and
Yeah.
you could see the guy that's the stunt double's doing this, so you
Yeah.
can't see his face.
Hmm.
Um, but it's Yeah, that's another thing that I noticed a lot is, oh, that's not Mel Gibson, or oh, that's not Danny Glover, or any, oh, look, that's not. So it's, I don't know how big they were because there's no real special features or anything, like how, especially with 1984,
Yeah.
how many of their own stunts they did. Like, was that a thing, like Tom Cruise or Vin Diesel and stuff that want to do their own stunts? Like, was Mel Gibson like, oh,
Probably.
screw this? That's why you got Bob back here. He's my stunt man. That's what he gets paid for.
Yeah. I mean, probably for the bigger ones. Now, there are probably, I think Mel Gibson did do some of his own stuff, but not much.
I think he's
More
safely
like the fight
doing his
scenes and stuff he
stunts.
did.
Well, yeah, anything that's a close up or whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
is him.
But like a
And
lot of the like jump scenes or anything, yeah, you can tell that wasn't him.
yeah, like
Even if
in
you
part,
didn't see the face.
well, yeah, like when in part four, when he jumps from he's chasing one of the bad guys and he jumps from one roof to another, but slips and he grabs the corner. It's like a dragon that he's hanging onto or something.
Mhm.
You could, when he jumps, it's not Mel Gibson. Close up of him going, "Oh crap," as he's sliding, and then when he
Mhm.
hangs on to the dragon, you can clearly see it's like another dude. Like it might even be like a Hispanic guy or something, just with his hair. Like, it's so not Mel Gibson. It might as well just be somebody totally different. Might as well just put a woman in there, and which they did more where men have done that. If you watch like the canon movies, a lot of those is you'll see the female running, and then she'll the dress and everything, and she'll be very feminine, and then the
Yeah.
stunt happens and you can see it's just this big guy, just kind of like the Hulk running through a hallway, like jumping out a window, and it's just a wig. Uh, um,
Wow.
those are the good old days, because that's
Uh,
like Chuck Norris's
I want to go
brother.
back.
In some ways, yeah. I mean, Aaron Norris, before he became a director, he was Chuck Norris's stunt double.
Mhm.
And my friends and I, because we would go see all the Cannon movies on the big screen. And
Yeah.
we would, especially if it was a Chuck Norris movie, because we would always check to see if it was Aaron, because they looked very close, but not close enough to where, like, if you saw this guy go through the window, you could go, "Oh, that's Aaron," and you could tell. But they looked close enough to get away with it.
Mhm.
So but
Wasn't
these were just bad.
I think in when it comes back to Chuck Norris, I think when he did Walker, you could definitely tell he wasn't the one that was riding the horse. You could tell it was somebody else. I don't think it was Aaron. His what was this, his son or
No, is his brother Aaron?
his
Yeah,
brother? Okay,
yeah. No, I
so
think that was just during Canon time. I think the Canon
okay,
Films was, because
sense.
then he eventually became a director, and I think he did like Braddock Missing in Action 3. He did Hellbound. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, and then I think that's he stopped being a stuntman. He just ended up being a director. I don't know. I think he did like Top Dog, some other
Yeah.
movies too. But if you put them
Mhm.
next to one another, they're very close. But
Yeah.
you can still tell, during a stunt.
There's always slight differences.
Yeah, yeah, because his beard and everything look the same. Like, they have like the same hair, but it's
Mhm.
their facial, their structure. Like, Chuck has more round, while Aaron is more straight.
Thinner,
It's
yeah.
yeah, like thinner. Yeah. So, anything else with the lethal? Oh shit! I hate when I do this. There we
We
go.
lost him. He's back.
I went into space for a second. I got to get a new
What is
laptop.
this?
I they're thinking of putting Chucky in space. I'm so excited for this. I just saw something on Twitter X, is what I call it, where it's like almost a petition that's going around. See,
Mhm.
now my screen is messing up because it did that. For to get Chucky in space,
Uh,
because he's
why
he's at the
not? They
he's
did
at a
Jason in space. Why can't they do everything else?
but that's that space is normally where these guys go to die. For Chucky, it would be awesome. For Chucky, it would just be like a step up. It would just be him just keep going up and up and up. Because right now, for season 3 of Chucky, he's at the White House. So where do you go after the White House? Space.
Gotta go to space, man.
Space. I'm hoping. So I don't know.
I mean, come on, come on. Would it not be cool to see Chucky kill some aliens?
Yeah, that'd be great. Or how about Lethal Weapon in space to kind of bring it back to that? Couldn't
Oh
Riggs
God,
and Murdoch they could join Space Force, which I'm still waiting for. They could join Space Force and go up into space, and they could be, they're investigating a murder on like a space station, and there could be like robot versions of like Leo, where he's like half human and half robot up in space, lethal space. In in
I
in
don't
in
know how I feel
in
about this.
space, nobody can hear your explosion, or in space, nobody can hear gunfire, something like that.
I mean, why not? Might as well, right?
Well, I will say one of the things is, and then we'll start to wrap this up, is the ideas for Lethal Weapon 5 have been floating around, I guess, for like 10 years or whatever. And with Shane Black, he did come up with one that I thought sounded pretty cool. Is he was gonna, instead of LA, is he was gonna take Riggs and Murdoch, they were gonna put him in New York during the worst blizzard in history. And there were and people were stealing because of the blizzard antiquities, and they had to stop them. And I thought that could look pretty cool. One, you're taking them out of LA, which is cool, and then you're throwing them into the storm that we've never
There you
seen.
go. Because they always have like a lot of these cop dramas and stuff for say, hey, um, we heard you're the best in LA. We need we need your help investigating something in New York or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like the New York Police Department calling on LA to help with their problem.
yeah. They could always team up with Bruce Willis.
There you go. Well, maybe it wouldn't work now because Bruce Willis is kind of
Well, you do a cameo.
okay. That
Yeah, a
works.
little cameo or something like that. Like, we thought you had the best in New York, and it's like, oh, he retired, and then it just shows pictures from the Die Hard movies. Two different
There you
companies,
go.
but But I thought that was, out of all the ideas that I heard that this retrospective was talking about, that one sounded the coolest because it was just different. Just would have been interesting. So we'll see what happens. So, do
Never
we want to
know.
do our rankings?
We sure can. I'll let you go first this time.
Ah, um, so I'm going. So Lethal Weapon is number 1. Lethal Weapon 4 is number 2. Lethal Weapon 3 is 3, and then number 4 is number 2. So the best is 1, the worst is 2.
Okay.
That's mine. What are yours?
You're not gonna be happy.
Oh shit.
All
Okay.
right. So
Let me get prepared here.
number 4. I'm going back from. Well, keep in mind here. I only have this one at number 4 because something has to go there. But I enjoyed all 4 movies. So number 4 is going to be Lethal Weapon 4.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
I'm not a fan of Chris Rock. Chris Rock kind of got a little annoying in the movie. I will say that.
Okay. Well,
And
look,
then
according
and
to the
then having,
retrospective, it's the least liked out of all of them. So I understand. Okay.
but I still enjoyed it. But there was time, like like you said before, some of the stuff with Leo they had to add in there because hey, it's a fan favorite, and then they threw Chris Rock into that. It's like, okay, this is getting a little like let's move it on.
Okay.
So Lethal Weapon number 3 is Lethal Weapon 3.
Okay.
Um, number 2 is Lethal Weapon 1. Number 2 is Lethal Weapon 2.
We are done here, sir. We are done here.
Diplomatic immunity.
To quote Quentin Tarantino, I reject your hypothesis.
Hey,
Okay.
hey. I mean,
Okay.
hey, you hated Lethal Weapon 2 so bad. I'm like, ooh. And when you started talking about it, I was like, ooh, he's not gonna like my list. To be fair, the only reason Lethal Weapon 2 is my number 1 favorite is because it's the one I've seen the most. Like every time I'd seen it on TV, it was always, that's the one I've seen, if you know what I'm saying.
I guess. Okay. All right. I'd be interested to find out where Die Hard sits then. You know, where what
I need
order
to watch
those
the
would
Die
go
Hard
in.
movies.
Well, maybe that should be our next thing. I think there's what, four of those? Die Hard 2, Vengeance. No, there's five. Good Day. No, Good Day is number five. Live Free and Die Hard. Yeah, there's five. And those are all in a box set. So
Okay.
maybe we should aim for that at some point. But okay, man, if you all right, okay, that's fine. Oh, one thing I do I mean if that's where you want to be. So oh, by the way, the fifth Lethal Weapon, according to Wikipedia, and this is of course not official, but it's called Lethal Finale.
Why? Just call it Lethal Weapon 5, for God's sakes.
Or who knows, maybe they'll just call it Lethal Weapon. And we'll do that thing. We'll do that thing. But so
if that happens, John, I'm coming after you, man. I'm coming after you. Because you gave him the idea.
Yeah, so it looks like Lethal Weapon. So I'm not going to get into the whole number thing here, so I'll just say what made the most. So part 3 made more money than any of them.
Oh, okay.
And that had a $35 million budget.
If I had to rank villains, I think 3 has the worst villain. And
by
4
far.
And I think 4 had the best villain. Just my opinion. I think Jet Li was a great villain.
Oh, he is very good. I still like part 1. I still like that villain better. But yeah, so Lethal Weapon 3 made the most. Then Lethal Weapon 4. Yeah. So we had the 325. Yeah, part 3 was 320. I'm not gonna. Okay, I'll do it this way. Lethal Weapon 3 made 322 million.
Okay.
Lethal Weapon 4 made 285 million. And then Lethal Weapon 2, which I thought was the highest one, I thought that's what the guy said, is 227 or 28 million if I want to round up. And then Lethal Weapon was 120 million. And each budget went up. The first one was 15 million, then 25, 35, God, and then 140 million. That's all actors. That's what the retrospective said. All actors. That all that money went to paying them.
Guarantee you Chris Rock was probably a good chunk of that.
And part 3 got part 1 on Rotten Tomatoes got 80%, part 2 got 82, part 3 got 58, and then part 4 got 52. So the soundtrack for all of these are really good.
Yeah. Music was good.
Yeah. So is there anything else here to? Yeah, they go into all the characters. Yeah, Lethal Weapon, the TV series. Yeah, you could tell how this was doing in the ratings. So season 1 for the TV series, 18 episodes. Must have done well, because then they're like, yeah, we're going to give you 22 episodes for season 2. And then they're like, oh, you guys, we thought you were doing good, but probably not the best. We're only going to give you 15 for season 3.
Hey, that's better than most times, because sometimes when they're going to cancel something, usually they give the last season like maybe 8 episodes or something like that.
That's right. Okay, so the guy who plays, it's like Shilan Crawford, who plays Riggs, something happened to him, like something bad, like he was being racist, or it was drugs, or something happened And then for the third season, he got replaced with Sean William Scott.
Oh, that is a horrible replacement.
Yeah, let's click on Crawford and see if it says anything.
Ooh.
I remember something happened. We're like, oh yeah, he got fired. Okay, so he
No
portrayed
wonder
Martin Riggs. Okay, reboot of Lethal Weapon. May 2018, during reports of bad behavior and hostility between cast and crew, Crawford was fired after 2 seasons and replaced with a new character. So he's not Riggs, played by Sean William Scott.
Oh, so they like maybe like killed him off in the last season he was in or something.
And then his co-star David Waynes quit the series shortly thereafter. So both Riggs and Murtaugh quit, or were fired and then quit.
Wow.
What the hell?
Wow. So when your two main actors quit, you know you're down the tube.
Yeah. I'm curious of
I mean, I kind of want to watch this series now just to see how bad it is. Like, see, like, I don't know. We're not gonna. Maybe someday down the line, we can make a tiny little video about it or something. Maybe I don't know.
yeah, maybe watch like one episode from each season or something. But it says that Sean William Scott was cast that month, I guess after Crawford's firing, as the new code lead for the third season, playing a new character named Wesley Cole. That same year in October, Damon Wayans announced his exit from the series following the end of the production of season 3. Okay, so it looks like he's in season 3, but he's like, yeah, I'm not coming back for season 4. In 2019, there was a strong possibility of Wayans returning. There would be renewed for a 4th seasons, but Wayans had cited health problems for his departure. So, yeah, now I'm kind of curious. Yeah, but I heard bad stuff about the guy playing Riggs. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on a show that's doing well. Might not be doing like Friends well, but you're doing a show that's 1, 2, 3 seasons, and all of a sudden you're a massive dick. How about not being a dick and appreciate what you have? So,
Yeah. But not everybody's like that though, unfortunately.
no. So, all righty. So, anything else?
That's everything, man. I mean, Lethal Weapon, it's a good.
I enjoy them, but I have problems with them, especially after this viewing. I really have problems with them. But I if somebody asked me, hey, let's do a marathon, I could watch them, but I don't think I would sit down, except for maybe the first one, and actually watch them again. Because it would be on my list as one of the greatest action movies ever made. So it'd be right up there with like the Terminator, Die Hard, Commando, stuff like that. Would be the first one. So
Cool deal.
yeah, there we go. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll figure out next month, which is literally tomorrow, and of what we want to do. And I guess that's it. And we appreciate you watching and staying around this long, and just being here. And like, subscribe, share. Let us know what your feelings are on Lethal Weapon. Maybe give us your rating. Give us your ranking on them all. So yeah. So all right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you, and see you later. Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye.